I want you to imagine two co-workers at the same company. Same office, same city, similar job titles. One earns $92,000 per year. The other earns $48,000. Walk into the first person's apartment, and you'll see a 70-inch television on the wall, a leather couch that cost $3,500, kitchen counters covered with gadgets, most still in their boxes, a closet bursting with clothes, half with tags still attached, a second bedroom converted into storage for things that haven't been touched in months. This person opens their banking app with anxiety in their chest. They're one unexpected expense away from crisis, 3 missed paychecks from disaster. Walk into the second person's apartment, and you'll notice something different. Space. A comfortable couch, a TV that works perfectly fine, a kitchen with tools that actually get used, a closet with clothes that are actually worn. The second bedroom is still a bedroom. This person checks their bank account with quiet confidence. They have $50,000 in savings. They invest 25% of every paycheck. They could lose their job tomorrow and be fine for over 2 years. Same city. The person earning half as much has built 10 times the financial security. This isn't a story about income. It's a story about the hidden mathematics of ownership that most people never calculate. The first person isn't irresponsible with money in any obvious way. They don't gamble. They don't have expensive vices. They just slowly accumulated a lifestyle that consumes every dollar they earn. The second person discovered something that changes everything. They learned that minimalism isn't about deprivation. It's about deliberately choosing what deserves space in your life. And that deliberate choice creates financial margin that high earners almost never experience. I'm going to walk you through the exact minimalist budget framework that builds this kind of security. These aren't generic tips about cutting coffee. This is a complete system for understanding the true cost of everything you own and everything you're considering buying. By the end of this video, you'll see why most financial advice keeps people trapped and how minimalist principles create wealth faster than a high salary ever could. Let me start with the concept that will fundamentally change how you think about every purchase for the rest of your life. Everything you own costs money twice. The first cost is obvious. It's the price tag, the number on the receipt, the amount that leaves your bank account when you buy something. But there's a second cost that most people completely ignore, and for many possessions, this second cost is larger than the first. The second cost includes space, maintenance, mental bandwidth, and opportunity cost. That exercise bike you bought requires physical space. Space costs money. If you're renting, you're paying roughly $25 to $60 per square foot annually, depending on your city. An exercise bike with clearance space occupies about 18 square feet. That's $450 to $1,080 per year in rent you're paying to store equipment that might get used twice a month. The second cost includes maintenance and upkeep. That car in your driveway needs insurance, registration, oil changes, tire rotations, and unexpected repairs. The average American spends $9,500 per year maintaining a vehicle. A $25,000 car costs you its entire purchase price again in maintenance over just 3 years of ownership. The second cost includes mental bandwidth. Every item you own occupies a small slice of your attention. It needs to be cleaned, organized, maintained, insured, protected from damage, and eventually replaced or disposed of. Research from Princeton University found that physical clutter reduces your ability to focus and process information. Your possessions are literally making you less effective at work, at thinking, at living. The second cost includes opportunity cost. Every dollar locked in possessions is a dollar not invested. That $12,000 home gym setup could have been $12,000 in index funds. Over 15 years at average market returns, that's approximately $38,000. You didn't just buy a home gym, you bought a home gym instead of $38,000 in future wealth. When you add up these hidden costs, many possessions cost more to own than they cost to buy. The purchase price is just the entry fee. The ongoing costs continue for as long as you keep the item. Minimalists understand this intuitively. They're not avoiding nice things because they hate quality or comfort. They're avoiding possessions because they've calculated the total cost of ownership and decided most things aren't worth it. This leads to the first rule that separates people who build wealth from people who stay broke regardless of income. Rule 1. Calculate cost per use before buying anything. Before purchasing any item, estimate how many times you'll realistically use it over the next year. Divide the purchase price by that number. This gives you the cost per use, which is the only honest measure of value. A $180 jacket worn twice costs $90 per wear. A $380 jacket worn 180 times costs about $2 per wear. The expensive jacket is dramatically cheaper in any meaningful sense. This calculation destroys impulse purchases immediately. That $280 kitchen appliance you'll use 3 times per year costs over $90 per use. That's an absurdly expensive way to accomplish whatever task it performs. A $25 tool you use weekly costs less than 50 cents per use over the first year. Meanwhile, some of your most valuable purchases have incredibly low cost per use. A $1,800 mattress used every night for 8 years costs about 60 cents per use. That's extraordinary value for something that affects your health and energy every single day. A quality coffee maker used daily for 5 years might cost less than $1 per use, probably saving money compared to coffee shop purchases. The math cuts through marketing, emotion, and social pressure. It reveals what actually makes financial sense versus what just feels appealing in the moment. Rule 2. Apply the replacement test to everything you already own. Walk through your home and look at each possession. Ask yourself one simple question. If this item disappeared today, would I spend money to replace it? Be brutally honest. Would you actually go buy another bread maker? Would you replace those shoes you haven't worn in 14 months? Would you repurchase that exercise equipment collecting dust in the corner? For most items, the honest answer is no. You would not replace them. They exist in your space through inertia, not intention. They were impulse purchases, gifts you felt obligated to keep, or remnants of hobbies you've moved beyond. These items have negative value. They cost you space, mental energy, and maintenance without providing corresponding benefit. Every minute spent cleaning around, organizing, or thinking about items you wouldn't replace is time stolen from things that actually matter. Minimalists ruthlessly eliminate items that fail the replacement test. They sell what has resale value, donate what someone else could use, and discard what serves nobody. The process feels uncomfortable at first, then it becomes liberating. The psychological weight of owning things you don't want is substantial. Removing that weight creates mental clarity that's difficult to describe, but immediately noticeable. Rooms feel larger, decisions feel simpler, cleaning takes half the time. You know where everything is because everything remaining has a purpose and a place. Rule 3. Never upgrade out of boredom. There's a pattern I see constantly among people who earn good incomes but accumulate nothing. They upgrade perfectly functional items simply because they're bored with them or because newer versions exist. Their phone works flawlessly, but the new model has a slightly better camera. Their laptop runs fine, but the new release is thinner. Their car has no problems, but they want the latest features. Each individual upgrade seems reasonable, but the cumulative effect is devastating. You're essentially paying thousands of dollars for marginal improvements to things that were already working. Here's the math that most people never calculate. Upgrading a phone every year instead of every 3 years costs an extra $800 annually. Over a decade, that's $8,000 in unnecessary spending. Invested instead, that becomes roughly $13,000. Upgrading a car every 3 years instead of every 8 years costs an extra $6,000 annually in depreciation and financing. Over 20 years, that's $120,000 in lost wealth. The difference between someone who drives cars into the ground and someone who always wants the newest model is literally 6 figures over a working lifetime. The minimalist principle is simple. Functional items stay until they stop functioning. Boredom is not a reason to spend money. Wanting novelty is not a financial strategy. The new version being available is not a problem that requires solving. Rule 4. Implement the 24-hour rule for all non-essential purchases. Every purchase under $100 that isn't a necessity gets a mandatory 24-hour waiting period. Every purchase over $100 gets a 7-day waiting period. Add the item to a list. Note the date. Return to the list after the waiting period. If you still want it and can articulate a specific use case, consider buying it. If the desire has faded or you can't remember why you wanted it, delete it from the list. The data on this practice is remarkable. Studies show that approximately 70% of purchase desires evaporate within 48 hours, if not immediately satisfied. That means 70% of your spending urges are pure impulse with no lasting value. The 24-hour rule doesn't prevent you from buying things you actually need or will genuinely use. It just filters out the noise, the emotional purchases. The boredom purchases. The marketing-induced purchases that would have turned into regret and clutter. One woman I know implemented this rule and tracked her results for 6 months. She identified 47 purchases she almost made impulsively. Only 8 survived the waiting period. She avoided spending $2,340 on items she didn't actually want. That's $4,680 per year redirected toward goals that actually matter. Rule 5. Adopt the 1 in, 2 out principle for categories that tend to accumulate. Clothing, kitchen items, books, and electronics are the 4 categories where most people accumulate far beyond what they use. For these categories, implement a strict rule. For every new item that enters, 2 existing items must leave. Want to buy a new shirt? Fine! Identify 2 shirts you'll donate first. Want a new kitchen gadget? Great! Remove 2 gadgets you rarely use. This rule forces conscious evaluation. It makes you confront the reality that you probably already own more than you use. It prevents the slow creep of accumulation that eventually requires a massive purge. Over time, the 1 in, 2 out principle naturally optimizes your possessions toward only the items you actually value and use. Your wardrobe becomes smaller, but more functional. Your kitchen becomes less cluttered, but more efficient. Rule 6. Track the hidden subscription creep. The average American household now pays for 5.4 subscription services, spending approximately $273 per month. But here's what makes subscriptions particularly insidious. They're designed to be forgotten. Companies deliberately make subscriptions easy to start and annoying to cancel because they know a significant percentage of subscribers stop using the service but forget to cancel. You're literally paying for things you don't use, and the companies are counting on your forgetfulness. Every 3 months, audit every recurring charge on your credit card and bank statements. Subscriptions, memberships, autopay services, everything. Ask the replacement test question for each one. If it disappeared today, would you resubscribe? Cancel ruthlessly. The gym membership you haven't used in 4 months. The streaming service you forgot you had. The app subscription that auto-renewed. The magazine you never read. One couple I know found $147 per month in subscriptions they had completely forgotten about. That's $1,764 per year. Over a decade, invested instead of wasted, that becomes roughly $25,000. Rule 7. Define enough for major categories. Most people never explicitly define what enough looks like, so they just keep acquiring more. A bigger house, a nicer car, more clothes, better furniture. The goalpost keeps moving, and enough never arrives. Minimalists explicitly define their enough point for major spending categories. What size home is sufficient for your actual needs? What car adequately serves your transportation requirements? What wardrobe meets your genuine needs for work and life? Write these definitions down. Be specific, then stop there. When you have enough, more becomes waste. It becomes money that could have built freedom, instead spent on things that add no real value to your life. Someone who defines enough at $65,000 of annual spending and earns $120,000 has $55,000 per year flowing toward financial independence. They'll reach wealth faster than someone earning $200,000, but constantly redefining enough upward as their income grows. The person who never defines enough can earn 7 figures and still be broke, because enough keeps expanding to consume all available income. Rule 8. Measure wealth by options, not possessions. The conventional view measures wealth by what you have: houses, cars, possessions, visible markers of success. Minimalists measure wealth differently. They measure it by what they can choose. Can you leave a job that's destroying your mental health? Can you take 6 months off to handle a family crisis? Can you move to a new city for a relationship? Can you start a business without guaranteed income? Can you say no to opportunities that pay well but compromise your values? These options represent true wealth. They're only available to people who've built substantial margin between their income and expenses. The person earning $180,000 but spending $175,000 has almost no optionality. They're completely dependent on that specific income level continuing forever. One job loss is a catastrophe. The person earning $75,000 but spending $42,000 has extraordinary optionality. The math strongly favors the first option. So does everything else that actually matters.